Anthropomorphism. Okay, the subject of anthropomorphism has come up in another conversation. I'm not going to go into the details of that. People taking part in that back and forth, if they see this video, may know why I'm bringing this up now. But really, I'm just isolating the issue of anthropomorphism. Now, anthropomorphism is, I'm assuming you all know, you can always Google it, but in common parlance, the anthropomorphism is the action of putting human attributes on something. So let's say that I want to let's say I have a plant in a pot I don't like, so I say, hey, I'm going to repot that plant because that's an ugly pot. And the person there with me says, oh, shh, you're going to hurt the pot's feelings. So that's like anthropomorphism. Okay, but what anthropomorphism is really about, to me, is the egocentrism of humankind. I mean, it follows from an assumption that there's certain characteristics that are just humans, just for humans. But you know what? We get these abilities from the DNA, and I don't believe the DNA loves us as much as all your dead old gods did and would give us just special things to some degree or other. Everything that we have can be found elsewhere as well, in different degrees and varying degrees. But think about the history of anthropomorphism. I mean, for example, for a long time, in the West, people were saying, oh, animals don't feel pain, even mammals. A dog's not feeling pain. He's just an automaton, and, he reacts to the damage, but he doesn't really feel pain. That's just you projecting your own feelings onto the animal. And most people don't believe that anymore. They realize that, yeah, the dog can be happy. Maybe you can even hurt a dog's feelings, but certainly it feels pain and things like this. Okay, so you draw the line further out there. You say, okay, yeah, birds feel pain, and and dogs mammals feel pain. But you get into lizards. People start to get a little iffy. You get into insects, people get a little iffy. Well, hey, when a fly loses a wing, it doesn't seem to be in pain. So yeah, maybe it's not wired up to feel pain from that. It's just not worth it. The fly doesn't live long enough to really need pain, the purpose of pain is to bring your attention to damage so you can do something about it. And the fly is just like, well, I just got to keep going. So the pain doesn't do it any good. So maybe it's not wired for pain. So fine. But it's not anthropomorphism to think that it might have pain or could have pain. It's just because it doesn't have pain because that didn't fit its design. It wasn't in its best interest, really. Evolutionarily, the flies that felt pain from that probably didn't do as well. They were distracted when really maybe even without that wing they could crawl up and lay their eggs and procreate still. So they just focus on that. So it's not anthropomorphism to consider because, for example, I imagine that a mosquito, it sees the whole world around it. It doesn't read dictionaries and follow politics, but it probably cares about, drinking blood and taking a rest. It could be flying along. I'm going to get a drink. No, I'm not. I'm going to land on this leaf and just rest for a bit. It's making decisions about its little life. Is that anthropomorphism? To think that the mosquito has a little life and it cares about its little life and it reacts and has information about its little life? Is that anthropomorphism? I don't think so. And, ultimately questions of things like consciousness, which all living animals are interacting with their environment in some way that involves a will or something. I don't see how we can say, well, will is just a human thing. Because I already established, well, it's at least a mammalian thing. And we can't claim these qualities just for ourselves, assume they're for ourselves, and then scold people for thinking that maybe a mosquito has a life, maybe a bacteria has a life. What about an atom? Well, obviously an atom doesn't have, reflective abilities. It doesn't have a network in order to store the kind of information we do. And yet still, if you're a materialist, then the will, whatever it is, there's some element of it in matter. There's some element that when you add enough matter together, you can get will out of it. So there's some part of will that's even in the matter. And it doesn't express itself as will, but, to say you shouldn't even think about that because it's anthropomorphic to do so, it's like, no, we're all matter, we're all DNA, we're all related, all the living things on this planet. It's entirely possible that any given quality of humans could be found out there in some to a different scale, expressing itself differently. should be found out there. And instead of thinking that, oh, we shouldn't project these out into the world, the fact is we should be looking for these characteristics in the world. We should expect that something like will is out there in bacteria. We should expect an element of will even in inanimate objects, in the sense that, a partial will, something, it's not expressing itself as will. Maybe it's not even what we would call will when it's in this partial stage. Just like, there's atoms in in bread, but the nutrient quality of those molecules, is only in the molecule. But the element of it, there's an element of why they're nutritious even in the atom, the free atom, which itself is not nutritious. But the elements of nutrition can be in there, because the elements of nutrition have to do with chemistry, and atoms have these chemical qualities. And when the atoms are in molecular form, then it's possible for this quality to be expressed. And so basically, I reject the whole issue of the anthropomorphic, because that's just human egocentrism. Once again, that we're in the center of philosophy or religion or the universe, and we always have to see ourselves at the center and claim everything for ourselves. And I reject that. I don't like, if somebody says you're anthropomorphizing it, they might as well say nothing at all, because there is no automatic quality that is only human. There's high-level things that are only human, like no other animals ever created a Webster's dictionary, or, as far as I know, a dictionary at all. But that's pretty high level, right? We're not talking about a fundamental thing. We're talking about a particular characteristic that either manifests or doesn't. So, okay, maybe pain, maybe it doesn't manifest in insects, or not in the whole body, only certain things. So in a particular case, we can try to discuss if some quality expresses itself and how it expresses itself. But we can't just say that, oh, that's a human quality, therefore it's wrong to ascribe it to anything else. Animals are just automatons. We're animals. Okay? If we have no free will, then you could say, well, probably bacteria don't have free will. But if we think we do have free will, then we should look for that element of will, even in bacteria. And what about plants?